there is some concept that we need also to explain, just to make sure that user understand how this has been done. This is our spirit as well, is to not only give you tools, but give you the knowledge behind in a certain measure, of course, and trying to simplify as much we can, because we do not pretend that anybody could understand all the deep detail of everything. But I'm sure that a lot of you are interested of at least understanding what's happened, and just to be sure that what we are doing is secure. So the process that we are using to manage the peer-to-peer market is a well-known process in Bitcoin and in Ravencoin, which is called atomic swap. And the idea is that we have two actors or two interlocutors, let's say, and they want to trade directly without having to go through a third part, because usually when you have to do a big deal like buying a car or anything, you will have to rely on a third part, which makes sure that the transaction is done well in both sides, and everybody respect its part of the contract. And atomic swap is trying to solve this without having to use a third-part person. How does it work? It's quite easy. Let's say I'm Bob and I want to sell my NFT. The way I can do that is I create an incomplete transaction, which I will sign and put on the network. Once I did that, and once the transaction I did, which is incomplete but signed, it's done, I created a contract, let's say, which say anyone that will send what I asked as input will receive what I provide as output. And if anybody try to change anything in this transaction, the transaction instantly become invalid. So there is no way to pay less, to pay more, to change their mind. If you want to do so, or if you want to change your mind, or if the deal need to be changed, you need to reissue a new transaction with a new signature. And on the other side, Alice, which wanted to buy an NFT, the only thing she need to do is to get the swap transaction informations and complete this transaction as simple it seems to be. The concept itself is quite simple, but the challenge here is that whenever Bob, because this is actually possible in the current state of the tools, but whenever Bob is creating this atomic swap, today what he receives is a strange big number of hexadecimal stuff, which is not usable at all, and that he would need to communicate to the rest of the world to say, hey guys, if you want to buy my stuff, here is the contract or the transaction that you can complete. And the network, the Ravencoin network, doesn't provide you such feature on a native side. So that's the first thing we did work on. It's really the atomic swap, the transaction itself. But it was not the biggest challenge. The biggest challenge was to provide as well the listing part, because now Bob did created his transaction, but he need to communicate the possibility of buying its token to the rest of the world. And the way we do that, it's going through the Squawker protocol, which is coming from one of the developer on Ravencoin Discord, sorry. And he had a simple ID, and I'm sure all of you that are issuing NFT are familiar with that, is that whenever you are issuing an asset, you can associate with this asset an IPFS hash. That's what usually you do when you create an NFT. You put the hash of the picture or the art together with this asset. But not only this is possible when you create the asset or when you mint it, but you can also do the same thing when you send it. And that's it's getting interesting, because if you can do so, that means that we can use an asset itself as a way of communicating some message and transmitting some message to the rest of the world without having to rely to a server. Because again, the idea here is not that we want to completely be independent and doesn't provide business. Either, as I show in the first slide, we are fully compatible with that. But we want to provide a choice to people to be able to do those transactions or to just do their own business without having to rely on so much servers, intermediate, and third part, which usually take fee in between. So the way we do that is that anytime that Bob, because here it's Bob, want to sell his asset, not only he does the atomic swap that we just saw before, but he will also send to himself a specific token. This token we will see later on is the token that is used for the market channel itself. And whenever he will do this transaction, with this transaction he will associate the IPFS message that contain all the detail of the atomic swap that he tried to communicate to the rest of the world. So doing this, we have a completely peer-to-peer system because the token is on chain. The token itself doesn't contain all the message and all the detail of the message for the peer-to-peer transaction to make it possible. But the rest of the message itself is then uploaded on IPFS. And so we are sure that, again, we are not relying on one server, but we are relying on a fully decentralized network. And everybody can host IPFS network, so or an IPFS node. So that make this solution completely feasible for anyone that would like to do this thing independently.